I wish and I hope every day that I am dead wrong about this prediction, but I really don't think I am. I think the profession, first of all, and you know this, and I think everybody listening to this probably has some sense of what a wonderful profession the wholesaling profession is. It's one of those great hidden professions. You don't, as a high school kid, you don't go, gee, I want to be a wholesaler. You know, it doesn't exist. Nobody sees it. But when you get into this business, you realize what an unbelievable profession it is. Not only is it, a highly compensated profession, but it's also a tremendous amount of fun. You get to work with advisors, you get to, you don't punch a clock, all the good stuff. But it's because of all that good stuff that we are vulnerable. And I can tell you as a senior executive at a money management firm, and I know a lot of, fellow executives, and every time the door closes at the board meeting, somebody raises their hand and says, this is the most expensive distribution model, the most dangerous distribution model. Do we really need this? Don't the funds sell themselves? Don't the products just sell themselves? I mean, if I heard that once, I heard it a million times. Given all those pressures internally, highly compensated sales force, and then you flip it around and say, look at all the stuff that's going on in the industry today. Wholesaling is a vulnerable profession. I predict, and again, I hope I'm wrong, but I predict a 50% washout over the next 3 to 5 years. And I think if you're not really, really good, you're vulnerable. And I think we're starting to see that already. I mean, I can name some firms that have laid off scores of wholesalers. The firms that, are numerically very successful, they're making different decisions. So that's why survival school is out there. We don't want you to give up this profession. We want you to evolve and change with it and be successful with it, because it's just fantastic to be a wholesaler.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Awesome Wholesaler Experience podcast, where we look into the many facets of the job, the career, and the lifestyle of investment and insurance product wholesaling. I am your host, the creator of the Awesome Wholesaler Experience, Awesome Mike. Hey, everyone. Today on the show, we have a special guest and kind of near and dear to my heart. He is a former Army officer, but let me not just ad-lib his bio. Let me read it to you. Mr. Frank Maselli, former Army officer and a 30-plus year veteran of the financial services industry. Now, he started as an advisor, actually, with Dean Witter, became branch manager and eventually regional sales director with PaineWebber in the early 1980s. From 1996 to 2006, Frank served as the executive vice president and national sales manager for Natixis, one of the largest and most successful mutual fund families in the world, based there in Boston. Frank is now a top-rated speaker, trainer, and industry consultant. He is the author of 3 best-selling books, and he has trained tens of thousands of advisors, wholesalers, and managers at nearly every firm in the industry. Now, his keynotes and training programs address bigger concerns that the advisors have, but in a modern, entertaining way. No more old school sales pitches or boring lectures. His delivery is filled with consistent passion, energy, relevance, and tremendous humor. He's often rated and ranked as the top speaker at the conferences that he does participate in. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, welcome to the show, Mr. Frank Maselli. How are you, Frank?
I'm good, Mike. I'm good. That sounds so nice when you say all that good stuff. Boy, I'll tell you. I just love to hear that.
I love saying it, and it's an honor to have you on the line here. But if you're up for it, I have a bit of a test for you. Are you up for a challenge this morning?
Absolutely. Go for it.
All right, here we go. Please tell us, sir, what is your first general order?
Oh, my God. I shall not quit my post until properly relieved. Something like that. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, but
we got to give Frank a pass. He was an officer, so he wasn't on guard duty much. But he's right. Yes, your first general order is, I will guard everything within the limits of my post and quit my post only when properly relieved. So thanks for your service, Mr. Maselli. We appreciate it.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
By the way, I had the second and third one locked and loaded in case you got the first one right. So we were going to really put you to the test.
God, you really would test me on that. I was the least military officer you could find. I really was. It was very funny.
Well, that is very interesting. In fact, if you could tell us, we want to know about you before we know about the content that you provide. So, tell us, Frank, where'd you grow up? How'd you grow up? What was life like as little Frankie Maselli? And maybe Who were your major influencers as a child growing up?
Oh gosh, and we'll talk about a boring story, but I grew up in a little town called Staten Island, New York, and just had a great childhood. It goes way back, but Staten Island is one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Most people don't realize that Staten Island is the forgotten borough, and it was a great experience. And went to a really nice high school. Very fortunate. Played football, got recruited to go to school, and ended up getting a scholarship to go to a little school called Lafayette College in Pennsylvania, and just had a great experience. A lot of fun. Joined the military after college, and had a wonderful tour of duty at a base in Maryland called Fort Meade, which is the home of the National Security Agency, which was kind of an interesting experience. And I commanded a hospital. It was a great experience. And then it took me into this business, very strange path into this business, pure luck to get into the financial services industry, but a lot of fun. Really have had a great run.
So did you have any particular leaders or mentors that gave you some inspiration as a youngster, meaning college and even early days as an officer? Anyone that you kind of like the beat of their drum and was inspirational to you?
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard to ignore the role of my incredible football coach. We had a nationally ranked team in high school, and our coach, not my year, but our coach was undefeated for 6 years. And it was a great experience. He was a legendary football coach, and I think he instilled that in all of us. It was a wonderful a mentor, a wonderful leader, and we learned a lot there. That's a formative experience. I think for any high school person, coaching is such an incredible thing. I mean, you know this. I mean, in any profession, but particularly when you're vulnerable and young and impressionable, like a high school kid. In college, some great professors, had some wonderful experiences. And then in the military, I mean, gosh, the military is filled with fantastic role models. If you look carefully, they're wonderful. I mean, my first commanding officer was a lieutenant colonel, and boy, oh boy, just an incredible individual. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate. I've had people to look up to my entire career. My first branch manager was just mind-boggling, a wonderful leader, and then it progressed from there. So it's kind of funny because now that's sort of the role that I want to play. I want to be the mentor and the leader for others, the role model if possible. I mean, I aspire to that. I don't know that I achieve it, but it's a lot of fun to think that way anyway, helping others.
Well, looking at your product and your content, you properly call it the vault that you have, because there's just so much value that you do deliver. So I think that you're probably on the way, if not completely successful in that regard. So tell us then, you're in the military, you do your service, and you transition to becoming a financial advisor at Dean Witter. How did that transition go, and what was your intention?
The transition was comical because I left the military and I was unemployed. I was looking for a job, and it was during the recession, the early 1980s recession. And I was literally on the highway driving from the golf course. I had played golf in the morning, and I heard an ad on the radio. This is an absolutely true story. An ad on the radio comes on and says, Dean Witter is hiring for the new Sears Financial Centers. Dean Witter got bought by Sears, and they were opening up these financial centers in Sears stores. And they were hiring stockbrokers, young rookie brokers, left and right. And there was a hiring seminar 2 exits away from where I was on the highway, and I'm looking for a job. And I figured, what the heck? I didn't have a suit on. I was in a golf outfit, and I said, I've got nothing to lose, right? Why not? So I pull in. I had to kill a couple of hours before the meeting began. I went to the meeting. I sat in the back because everybody was dressed in a suit, and I didn't want to embarrass myself. Comes the end of the meeting, manager calls people up individually. And I went up and I said, hi, listen, I apologize. I played golf, blah, blah, blah. He goes, it's okay. Tell me about your background. I said, well, I was an Army officer. And he stopped and he says, you're hired. Didn't ask me to sell him anything. Didn't ask for any references or anything like that. He just said, you're hired on the spot. I mean, that should have told me something about the nature of the business right there. But yeah, I started in the business at Dean Witter with a bunch of rookies, and they stuck us in Sears stores, and it was a gold mine. It was an unbelievable experience. It was one of the greatest marketing tools that frankly they never really took advantage of, in my opinion. But we were opening 40, 50 new accounts a month. It was an incredible run.
Wow.
And yeah, just it mushroomed from there. It was a great experience.
That's amazing. So you transfer from being a producer though into management.
Yeah, very quickly.
And as you know from being a soldier, that's a different thing too. You know, I mentioned in a pre-call I'm a Mustang, which means
That's right.
not that I break down and leak oil, but basically that I was an enlisted person, soldier, and became an officer. Went from being a worker to being a manager. Can you tell us about the transition and maybe some of the lessons that you learned and took with you?
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because you probably know this. You probably experienced this. As a leader now, having been a soldier, you carry a lot more weight and credibility with people, and I'm sure you felt that. As a former, advisor, when I became a manager, I had a real understanding of what advisors went through, and I had a very significant soft spot for the struggles that advisors experience, because I did, on a limited basis, of course, I did experience those. So my goal as a manager was to facilitate everything advisors were trying to do. I felt compelled to help them in any way I could because I felt that they needed help. And so it was a really natural transition and a very effective transition. I was fortunate to kind of rise through the ranks pretty quickly. I left Dean Witter and I went to PaineWebber, and I was started out as a sales manager, ended up taking over the branch about 3 months after I got there. The manager who recruited me left very quickly, which sort of scared me a little bit. But I took over the branch, and then I went out and got a much bigger branch eventually. And but all the time focused on what advisors needed, because I had been an advisor and I really cared about them tremendously. It was a great transition. It was comfortable. It was natural. And I think it was very successful. I think I was a pretty good advisor. I was not a good detail-oriented advisor. I was never good with paperwork or administrative tasks or compliance or anything like that. But I was really I tried to be a very helpful manager for my advisors. So a lot of fun.
Very interesting. So after your success as a manager, all of a sudden you jump on the other side of the fence. Some would say the tracks, maybe the dark side.
Dark side.
and you become the leader of a wholesale force.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that was fun.
Not just anyone. I mean, we're talking about a substantial behemoth in the business. Can you tell us about your time at Natixis?
Yeah, well, keep in mind they weren't a behemoth when I took over. They were a disaster when I got there, and it was we were actually not even called Natixis at the time. We were called New England Funds, and we had multiple managers, different firms that we had purchased throughout the years: Oakmark, CGM, Loomis Sales. Some of these institutional and retail managers, but they were very poorly represented. We had a very weak wholesaling force. I'll give you an idea. One of my wholesalers was actually written up on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, front page of the Wall Street Journal. The way he was doing business was taking his brokers to Costa Rica on quote-unquote fishing trips. And these were the gunslinger days of buying the business as wholesalers. It was just an unbelievable wild west of wholesaling. And we were very good at it when I took over, and I immediately fired 7 wholesalers because that was a path to disaster. So I came in, I cleaned house as best I could, and we turned the model around to become very value added. We did nothing but add value for the first 3 years that I was there because the funds were really bad. And we told people, I actually went to the advisors and I said, look, the funds suck. Don't do the funds, all right? And which, by the way, was not a good sales strategy, but it was the truth. I mean, what are you going to say to an advisor? How can you lie to an advisor? Having come from the advisor world over to the product world, it killed me to tell people to do our funds when they were not up to snuff. I knew they would be good eventually because the managers themselves were good. They were just out of favor. We had great managers. And we decided to do the value add approach, and it was a gold mine, an unbelievable success. And when the managers finally came around, the sales exploded. And then we got bought by the French, and we got turned into Natixis. So it was now they're gigantic. I mean, they're north of $1 trillion, I would imagine. So, yeah,
all thanks to you pivoting that ship.
No, I don't think so. Great wholesalers is what did it, frankly. They were really super and fantastic money managers. They were excellent. They are excellent.
That's a formidable combination when you have those two. So your days at Natixis come to their close, and you decide to go out onto your own and continue your life as a teacher and a leader of financial services professionals. And one thing in particular that caught my eye, and that will catch the eye and the ear of the majority of the listeners to the show, is you're the inventor, the creator, the founder of the Wholesaler Survival School.
Right.
And I'd like to read a quote that I picked up from your site there. And it says, and I quote, "The wholesaling profession is vulnerable. Put simply, our jobs are changing and may be at risk." I'm going to continue. "My guess is you know what I'm talking about. Our profession is changing for many reasons, and the current environment includes massive product competition, wholesaler contact overload, historically low advisor activity levels, shrinking product platforms, passive versus active management bias, high costs and risks of the field sales model," in quotes, fiduciary restrictions and compliance issues, changing advisor demographics, the emerging robo wholesaling model. Now, the profession as a whole won't go extinct, but for many individual wholesalers, the choice will be either to excel or simply wash out. If you're not in the top 5% of your firm or in your territory, you could face some unpleasant consequences in the next few years. And it's already happening. Frank, you have our attention, buddy.
Wow. Yeah, I wish and I hope every day that I am dead wrong about this prediction, but I really don't think I am. I think the profession, first of all, and you know this, and I think everybody listening to this probably has some sense of what a wonderful profession the wholesaling profession is. It's one of those great hidden professions. You don't, as a high school kid, you don't go, gee, I want to be a wholesaler. It doesn't exist. Nobody sees it. But when you get into this business, you realize what an unbelievable profession it is. Not only is it, a highly compensated profession, but it's also a tremendous amount of fun. You get to work with advisors. You get to, you don't punch a clock, all the good stuff. But it's because of all that good stuff that we are vulnerable. And I can tell you as a senior executive at a money management firm, and I know a lot of, fellow executives, and every time the door closes at the board meeting, somebody raises their hand and says, this is the most expensive distribution model, the most dangerous distribution model. Do we really need this? Don't the funds sell themselves? Don't the products just sell themselves? I mean, if I heard that once, I heard it a million times. So given all those pressures internally, highly compensated sales force, and then you flip it around and say, look at all the stuff that's going on in the industry today. Wholesaling is a vulnerable profession. I predict, and again, I hope I'm wrong, but I predict a 50% washout over the next 3 to 5 years. And I think if you're not really, really good, you're vulnerable. And I think we're starting to see that already. I mean, I can name some firms that have laid off scores of wholesalers, firms that, are numerically very successful. They're making different decisions. So that's why Survival School is out there. We don't want you to give up this profession. We want you to evolve and change with it and be successful with it, because it's just fantastic to be a wholesaler.
I agree. And actually, you're right. There are firms, top tier firms, that are exiting the business for one reason or another, leaving entire sales teams in the lurches. So give us a couple of your best ideas, if you would, on how to put on a little protective vest or a Kevlar or a steel pot back in the day, for a wholesaler to take from this show and to implement right away as they investigate your school.
Sure. Well, the first thing, and this is a hard thing to get people to understand sometimes. The first thing to realize is that your firm is not necessarily your friend when it comes to survival school. And what I mean by that, I'm not trashing anybody's firm. We all work for very great companies, and I understand that. But I have to tell you, when it does come time to make cut decisions, the decision is often made very capriciously, very quickly, and it's a midnight phone call kind of decision. So you need to do things as a wholesaler today that go beyond whatever the firm is telling you to do. You need to get better than what the firm is asking you to do. So that means the pressure is on you to learn new strategies, to learn new techniques, to develop new skills that actually put you ahead of your competition at the firm. These are your colleagues, these are your friends. You've probably worked with many of them for, if not a dozen, maybe even more years. So don't take any of this the wrong way, but at the end of the day, it's me against him, and I want to be the survivor. So we tell people, think a little bit more competitively for your own sake and protect yourself. That's number one. Number two is the skills, and we go into an excruciating list of skills that we think wholesalers need to have. And that's the gist of the whole survival school methodology is what do you need to do and how do you do it, basically. But the first thing we tell them is protect yourself. Oh, and the other thing is make sure you live below your means. Don't be vulnerable financially. A lot of wholesalers make great money, and we live like at the best trailing 12. Advisors do the same thing. They take their best trailing 12 and they live that way. You can't do that. You got to live on half of what you make to protect yourself in case the change happens. But
those are words of wisdom there. You remind me of a story. The old story about the two guys go camping, and they're awakened by a grizzly bear in their camp, starting to thrash around. And the one guy looks over at the other guy, and the other guy's putting his tennis shoes on. And the guy says, "What are you doing? You can't outrun a grizzly bear." And he says, "I don't have to outrun the grizzly bear. I have to outrun you."
It's a funny story, but it's true. It really is.
Yeah, and then so as far as skills go for a wholesaler, what are some of the best skills that you've seen that a wholesaler should consider developing in addition to being able to present their product?
Well, the product is absolutely secondary. There's not an advisor in the world who wakes up in the morning and says, "Please, God, bring me more product." Okay, we got product coming out the yin yang. We've got more product. Advisors have more product than they will ever need or want to learn or even have the time to understand. So your product is meaningless to an advisor. It is a total commodity to an advisor. The only thing that is not a commodity potentially is you. And that's, we try to take wholesalers who pitch their product and we try to say, stop doing that. Don't stop entirely. I mean, you need to sell product, but pitch yourself as valuable to the advisor where the advisor lives. What do advisors care about? Well, if they don't need your product, what do they need? And this is the interesting issue, because advisors don't even think they need this, but they absolutely do. They need to grow. Their business, advisors right now are also extremely vulnerable because their business success has come from a 9-year bull market. It has not come from any organic growth or any net new relationship growth. The statistics on net new relationships are terrifying. If you look at them closely, they're terrifying. The average advisor is bringing in no net new relationships. Asset growth has been extraordinary, which means fee growth has been great, which means everybody's complacent. Everybody's fat and happy. So, but that's going to change. That's changing as we sit here. It's already changing. So what I tell wholesalers is, look, be valuable to the advisor. Help them with the help that they need, which is how to grow their business in a modern, intelligent way that reaches successful clients, in a non-sales approach, because selling is dead. So, those are the skills, and we teach value-added skills. It's just, it's a fairly simple model, but it's very powerful. Old school wholesaling doesn't work, and old school advising doesn't work. So it's a completely new world out there.
Would you believe that very often now when I'm in the field, I am dealing with wholesalers and with financial advisors now get ready for this,
Mhm.
that have never seen a bear market.
Oh, sure. I
Think
believe it.
about their mindset. And it's not their fault.
No.
It's just that they've only been in the business 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So they have an education by fire coming soon. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that as a wholesaler, you need to be able to provide ways for these advisors to grow and to add that value beyond your product. What do you tell the guy though? What do you tell the wholesaler that says, I don't have time for that? I got a hot product. It's closing. I got to get out there and shake as many trees and try to grab as many apples as I can before they rot off the vine.
I tell them to carry on and do what they're doing, because I can't save every wholesaler, and it's a hard reality that in an evolutionary environment some have to die. So if I believe 50% washout, then this may be a washout candidate. Now I'm going to give someone a chance to save themselves, okay? And I totally understand the pressure on wholesalers. It's mind-boggling, the pressure that wholesalers experience, because every year, no matter what they did the year before, the numbers go up, the golds go up. You know this. Have golds ever gone down in your career? I mean, it's kind of comical, isn't it? So, bottom line is, if somebody doesn't choose to embrace the model, then I wish them good luck, and I say carry on, and more power to you. And frankly, if I am wrong, then they're going to end up being very successful. So who the hell am I? I mean, I'm only one person, but
well, it's interesting, Frank, that the adage is that many are called, but few are chosen.
Right.
So I appreciate that. One of the things that you do, and you mentioned it kind of in a terrifying way, frankly, is the emerging robo wholesaling.
Yeah.
What does that exactly mean, and why should we be concerned?
Well, robo is happening across the industry. It's certainly happening with advisors. It's already well underway. I mean, you've got major firms that are transitioning to at least hybrid robo models in some way. Some people call it virtual wholesaling. It's basically wholesaling without a physical presence. So no one needs to come into the office, but I'm going to do a webinar, I'm going to do a go-to meeting, I'm going to do some sort of a call, I'm going to accomplish my mission, but not physically have to be present in any form. That's sort of the general way that I think of robo at this point. It's going to take on a bigger role going forward, but it's okay. You don't need to be afraid of robo. I think you need to embrace it, understand it, and in a strange way, do what you're doing, Mike. I mean, you're mastering it. You've made a decision in your career to say, hey, you know what? I am a wholesaler, but I see the writing on the wall in terms of the future of communication, and I'm going to embrace this. So you're a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I'd like to see other wholesalers get that engaged and that involved. But robo is here. It's not going away. Technology has made interpersonal physical communication, one-on-one, go to lunch, go to dinner, do a seminar. It's made that stuff a little less important in some ways. But there are other things that cannot be replaced by robo. I think at the end of the day, a human contact, a face-to-face, shaking hands, human contact can still be very important. It's very important for advisors, and I think it will be important continually for wholesalers at some level.
You're validating my thesis, so I appreciate that very much, and I learn a lot from guys like you that are out there preaching this, so I appreciate that. You mentioned that face-to-face, press the flesh, shake the hands, look me in the eyeball is still important. And one of the companies that you've aligned yourself with or partnered with, or maybe you've taken over, I'm not sure exactly, but I think they're terrific. White Glove Workshops. And White Glove Workshops is a turnkey outfit that provides workshops, materials, and such for I guess for everyone, but primarily financial advisors. And I even think they do some that they're working on with value add for wholesalers. But can you tell us a bit about White Glove Workshops and why their time is now?
Yeah, White Glove is a fascinating story. It really intrigues the hell out of me because I was told about them by an advisor, and this was an advisor I had trained many years ago in seminars. I wrote this book on seminars, and he called me up and he said, Frank, you got to talk to these guys because they really have reinvented seminar marketing. And the first thing he said to me was, you don't pay for direct mail. You only pay for the number of attendees who actually show up. And it literally took me about 5 minutes just to get my mind around that. I said, what do you mean? So if 3 people show up, you only pay for 3 people? He says, yes, that's exactly right. And I couldn't really understand it. So I called him and I said, tell me what you do, because I'm sort of like deep into seminars and I'd like to understand more about what you do. And they told me the story, and I met with the 2 gentlemen who founded it. Both of them are advisors. They were both advisors. They are both advisors still. And they did a lot of seminars. They did the direct mail thing that we've all done. And they got the same response. In the beginning, it was 3% response, and then it was 2, and then it was 1, and then it was a half, and now it's down to 0.1% response rate. And so they said there's got to be a better way, and they hooked up with some technology, and it's revolutionary. And they do no mail, they do nothing but digital. They pack the room, and you only pay for the people who show, which to me is unbelievable. How many times, and you've done this, how many times have you scheduled a seminar? I mean, I've done literally thousands of seminars, okay? And I would have the room set for 40 people, and I'm at Ruth's Chris, and I've got $80 a head, and I'm paying through the nose, and then the rain starts coming down, and I'm standing out in front of the restaurant going, please, God, make it stop raining. And I end up 40 empty chairs. I got 3 people in the room, and I just spent $9,000, and it's just so anyway, you don't have to do that. So White Glove, fantastic story. Complete turnkey operation. And this is the best part, purely educational. There's no selling going on at these workshops, and the public is going wild for this stuff. They are packing the house in every market I can think of because people want education. Everybody says seminars are dead. No, seminars are not dead. They're so far from dead, it's ridiculous. Seminars are completely alive, but you got to do them modern way. You can't be pitching product. Product is dead. Seminars are not. Education is coming back full force, and there's 2 generations of investors that can't wait to be educated. So long story short, I think this is a gold mine, and these are really smart guys, and it's a lot of fun to work with them. I do the coaching. I coach all the advisors on how to do really good, seminars, because getting the people in the room is White Glove's job. Doing a great seminar is the advisor's job. So I help them with that.
Yeah, it's a great combination that you have there on your website. MaselliGroup.com. There's the vault that's there. There's actually a lot of great free content on there that just really stimulates your appetite for more. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
One of the things I saw on there was the personality profile interview. Basically, the interview that you do for yourself.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, tell us about that a little bit. I think that everyone could use that, whether you're a wholesaler, financial advisor, or a support person. That
is, I've come up with a few winning marketing strategies, only a handful, but this one is probably one of the best. This is where you get some third-party press about yourself. And without going into a long-winded explanation, third-party press is very powerful. When you can have somebody write something about you and publish it, it carries a tremendous amount of weight, 20 times the weight of, let's say, advertising, for example. So I developed a system whereby the advisor gets to interview themselves. They get to ask themselves, 10 or 15 great questions that they absolutely would love to answer. Okay, these are, natural softball type questions that they want people to understand. And then what I do is I rewrite it like, sort of professionally, make it sound like a really great interview. I publish it and put my name on it as the author. And we make it look like it came right out of a magazine. It's just an absolute home run, and it's 1/10 the cost of a PR agent. It's just such a fantastic thing. And if you've got a great story, the fun part of this is that there's some advisors out there with fascinating stories, really interesting backgrounds. They've got fantastic teams that they've built, but they just don't know how to tell the story. That's what I help them do. I help them polish their story and tell it in a very readable and professional looking way. And it's a lot of fun. I love doing those things. The personal profile interview, it's really a good tool.
It's actually in line with the gift giving season. It would be a great way for a wholesaler to help a financial advisor with their marketing for next year.
Well, that's a nice thought. Yeah, I mean, wholesalers are looking for ways to be value added, and this is a real home run, and it's pretty inexpensive. I mean, you may need to get approval on it, but it's not. It's far less than the cost of a seminar or something else that you'd be asked to support. So,
Oh,
something to
100%.
think about.
Yeah, 100%. Now, in addition to that, you are I guess an advocate of the Colby A index profile.
Yeah.
And so can you tell us, most of us, I don't want to assume that everybody's gone through it. I've gone through it, and it's not exactly like a net worth statement, but it is a symbol of your your background, and can be foretelling to your abilities. But what is the Colby A index for, and how can a wholesaler and financial advisor use it?
Sure. Do you remember your scores, by the way?
Oh, of course I do. 4,
What?
3, 10, 2.
Oh my God, we are brothers, my friend. I'm a 3-3-10-3. Okay, so that's so funny. We're
Wait a minute,
talking.
you're like a unicorn. I mean, I've never met another 10.
Yeah, there's only a couple. Let me tell you, there are not that many of us. That's true.
Wow.
But it's fun, but it's also dangerous. The Colby the Colby is the only test in the world that measures, that quantifies a person's instinctive behaviors. It's got nothing to do with your personality, like a Myers-Briggs or a DISC test. And it's got nothing to do with your intelligence. This is the only test that measures the instinctive behaviors that a person exhibits. And the reason this is important is because instincts are permanent. These are hardwired characteristics that have been with you your entire life, and they will be with you. These are strengths that you have that are subconscious strengths, and they are just fantastic to understand. You cannot change them, by the way. That's the interesting thing. Personality can change. We talk about a statistic in Colby land called test retest validity, without getting into too much technicality. The Myers-Briggs is the most popular personality test in the world. The Myers-Briggs has a 40% retest validity over 4 weeks, which means your personality can shift significantly within a 1-month time frame. Wow. The Colby has a retest validity of 90% over 10 years. It's permanent. So what we do with the Colby is we identify the strengths, and then we teach advisors how to use those strengths. Advisors and wholesalers, frankly. I just did a big meeting with a big wholesaling team. Advisors and wholesalers how to use those strengths to drive their business successfully and to have a lot more fun. When you're using your strengths, you're in the zone. You're having a ball, and you're very successful. When you're not using your strengths, when you're violating your instincts, you're stressed, you've got a headache, you've got very low energy, and you've got a lack of success, quite frankly. You're probably not succeeding. So anyway, the Colby is a gold mine, and it's cheap as dirt. It's a $50 test, and I do free consultations with anybody who takes the Colby. So you and I should talk at some point. We're both brothers here. That's so funny.
Yeah, I've had 3 ideas since you started talking about it. One of the things that I'll offer for the listeners and viewers here, it's great to have your internal wholesaler do the test as well. Mm-hmm. So my all-time best internal wholesaler and I did the test, and ironically, she was only a 3 quick start. And because there's a gap of 5 or more numbers, me being a 10, her being a 3, that's a point of conflict.
Yeah. Actually, a 3-point gap is the potential for instinctive conflict. But she supports you. She's probably a fact finder follow through. True?
Very high fact finder, which is this is how it would go. Monday, I'd finally get to talk to somebody because all weekend long I'm doing the family thing, and so Monday I get to dump the 50 ideas I thought of on her Monday morning. Okay, we're gonna do this, and this. Go get them, boom. And I go to work, and I call her after a lunch meeting, whatever, and I say, okay, I got a couple more ideas, whatever. And she's like, well, what about that idea that you thought about at 9 o'clock? I'm like, oh, forget that. Here's another one, right? And she'd worked all morning on that one idea. I just told her to forget, kind of at the flip of a coin there. And it wasn't until we got the Colby to where we kind of ironed that out. So I had a ration of good ideas. That's it.
That's right.
3 a week, and we're going to implement, and that no more. So it was kind of very interesting. And I can also identify it with advisors.
Sure.
Some guys like us can get impatient with an advisor who wants more facts. who doesn't want to do a one meeting close, who needs to get the prospectus,
Right.
hear the PM call. So it's very helpful when I can understand what that person's mentality is. Not even with them having to take the Colby, but because I can recognize those 4 characteristics. So.
Well, it's funny you say that, because at Natixis, we put everybody in-house through the Colby, internals, externals, management, the whole 9 yards. And then we put our top advisors through the Colby. We paid for it. We had them take the test. And when my wholesaler came into your office as an advisor, he, on the BlackBerry, which shows you how long ago this was, we all had BlackBerries, he would pull up your sales on the BlackBerry, and your Colby scores would come up, and he would know exactly how to talk to you. He would know exactly what you needed from him, how to prepare for the meeting in advance. It was a gold mine, a gold mine. And I tell wholesalers today, this could be one of the greatest tools you've ever used in your career. It's so powerful, and it's easy to do. It's very inexpensive, and it's so quick to do. So a lot of fun.
I agree with you completely. Thanks for championing that. So I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, basically into overdrive. You have a concept that I think is timely, and it may be what saves a financial advisor or even a wholesaler's career. And it's called the lifeboat drill.
Oh.
Now,
you did your homework. I have to say, I'm very impressed with the research you've done.
Hey, I mean, you're a legend, an icon. I want to learn as much as I can from you, and I want the listeners to do as well. So, tell us about the concept of a lifeboat drill and why it's important. Maybe how we can use it.
Well, it's funny because I use a lot of metaphors in my training, and lifeboat is one of them. Lifeguard is another one. I do a lot of this stuff because I really think that our business is a lot bigger than just money, and we don't need to get into all of that, but I think we're a life-saving profession, quite frankly. So lifeboat drill is a very straightforward conversation that I scripted it out. Now, you don't need to use it as a script. It's for advisors to use with their top clients, where they do a couple of things. First of all, they psychologically and emotionally calm the client down, because we're in scary times right now. And, who knows if this gets better or gets worse. We don't really know. So I do lifeboat drill, and I tell the client, look, we've got a great plan in place. We'll make a few changes, but I think the plan is solid. But what I want to do today, George is the client, hypothetical. I say, George, look, I've created a lifeboat plan for you. I don't think we're going to need it, but I want to show you the lifeboat in case the spaghetti does hit the fan. We're not going to have a lot of time. We're going to go to the lifeboat, but I want you to understand what the lifeboat is. I've created this for you. And I walk the client over to the lifeboat, and we go into detail on what the lifeboat plan looks like. But from a psychological standpoint, you've calmed the client down, and you've demonstrated, this is the most important thing, you've demonstrated that you're a proactive, forward-looking, risk-protective advisor on their behalf. And so the long and short of lifeboat drill is that it's a powerful conversation to have with clients. It calms the client down. It makes them feel fantastic about you and your service. And the best part is it helps you consolidate assets. A lot of advisors have clients with assets at other places. And we teach this. I say, look, go through lifeboat drill and then say to the client, George, look, if you have an account over at Fidelity, and I know your wife rolled over her 401k at XYZ, if we have to go to the lifeboats, I have no control over any of those other assets, and I want to get all the children into the lifeboats. That one sentence is generating ACAT transfers right there at the meeting with the client. It's that powerful. So long story short, lifeboat drill is a fantastic conversation, and the timing couldn't be any better. And I mean, good God, we're in the middle of the storm right now. You better get ready before the spaghetti does hit the fan. So a lot of fun.
I think you have literally a vault of great content and info, and I'm not sure that that's not the best piece. And as the sole income provider to my family of children and of my wife, and to think about conducting these kind of lifeboat drills on all areas of your life.
Good point.
It sounds funny, but a fire drill in my house.
That's right.
what happens? Okay, this is the way you go out. Okay, well, guess what? That staircase is on fire now. You can't go out that way. Which way are you going to go? Because as you know, from the military, you fight how you train.
That's right.
And essentially, if you're fighting for your financial life or you're fighting for your customer, you're going to fight how you train. So is there can we go a little bit further maybe and kind of brainstorm? I know that you and I have a limited ability to brainstorm. But how could a wholesaler create this kind of a lifeboat drill for a financial advisor?
Well, I think each client's lifeboat plan is going to look a little different based on what the needs of the client and what the current portfolio looks like. I don't think, and in fact, I say this in the article, I don't think the construct of the lifeboat plan itself is the most critical part. I think just having the lifeboat, within about 10 minutes, I could take a client's financial plan and I could make it really conservative very quickly. I'll shorten maturities on any fixed income. I'll raise 50% cash. I'll go growth to value, so from a financial planning standpoint, the actual construct of the lifeboat isn't that difficult. What's difficult is getting the advisor to understand the value of proactivity in this environment. Clients today, even the most sophisticated clients, okay, are uncertain of the future. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the times we live in. These are weird, strange times. And so the value an advisor brings a client by being proactive is so much more essential than being reactive. Reactive is useless. You're useless to me if you're telling me what happened last year. I couldn't care less. Tell me what's happening going forward and protect me from danger. Clients want to be protected. And I like to think of my advisor. I have an image of my advisor as the captain of the ship standing there with the binoculars looking out at the horizon. Okay, that's what I want my captain doing. So it's a psychological and emotional tool, probably more than it is a financial tool. Wholesalers just need to bring this to people's attention. Wholesalers can use Lifeboat Drill. They can help advisors create the plan. They can actually help deliver the conversation if they want. Although I don't think that's absolutely necessary with great advisors. So, but a wholesaler can be the genesis of bringing this idea to an advisor. They're not going to find it without you.
I love it. I'm a sponge for creative and innovative ideas, and Frank, that is a superior idea. I think that's terrific. So thank you for creating that and sharing that with us. Let's shift some gears. As we mentioned, you and I could probably talk all weekend. Yeah, and I'd love to do that sometime in person, over with a bonfire and a fishing rod, probably. But let's talk about a couple of things. I want to ask you my signature questions, and every guest gets these questions, and it's pretty creative and amazing, and sometimes disappointing, but the answers that we get. So I'm going to ask you to just kind of let the answers flow. But
okay.
First question: if you pick the phone up, and on the other end of the line is 30-year-old Frank Maselli, what advice would you give your 30-year-old self, Frank?
I'd tell him to lose weight and get in shape. No, I would probably, 30-year-old, let me see, where was I 30 years ago? Okay, yeah, I don't know. Career advice, I've had a great career and it's still going, so I don't know that I would change anything career-wise, but I would definitely say, hit the gym, Frank, because it doesn't get any easier. I'm 62 now. I got to work out 10 times harder than I did when I was 30 to stay in any kind of physical condition, but take care of your health. Knock wood, things are good, but and frankly, I think it would be probably learn how to control a little bit of that quick start, because the quick start is a fantastic blessing. And we're going back to the Colby here. We're both screaming quick starts. It's been the essence of my career. It's been the greatest success I've ever had, but it's also been the genesis of some difficult times. And I wish I had learned the Colby 30 years ago. I think that might be the other piece of advice: is go seek out Kathy Colby and find out, what your strengths are. But that's a funny question. I like that. But get in shape would be number one.
Get in shape and get in touch with your Colby. Yeah, Kathy did a great job with that program. So thanks for sharing that with us. Second question, and this is the fun one. Frank, if you could have any superpower, which one would you choose and what would you do with it?
Oh God, it's so funny you asked this. I was literally thinking about this last night as I was going about it. I said, "Well, okay, I would like I would like the power to. I mean, this is sort of a Star Trekky kind of thing. I would like the power to transmit myself physically to any location at any given time. And I think this comes, and the funny part is, I think it comes from flying so much around the country. I am so sick of traveling, flying, God knows, sitting at airports. I would like to just go snap and appear somewhere. So that might be fun. I don't know who says flying or being able to read minds. I guess those would be fun things too. But no, I think the ability to snap your fingers and appear somewhere, and then snap your fingers and disappear. And I would travel. I would probably travel a lot more than I currently do. That's funny. Good question.
Very good. Very good. A couple of my guests and even myself, the closest that we can come to doing that is private aviation.
Sure.
And Ron Carson, I'm sure you know, is a huge advocate of private aviation because it is a literal time machine.
Yeah.
So until we get the teleportation done, maybe we can work towards getting you a private jet or a helicopter at least, right?
A chopper would be good. I'll take it.
Yeah. Only I remember back in the day, they said like two of the scariest things to ever hear is first one is a second lieutenant saying, "Well, based on my experience," and the second one though was when you hear a chief warrant officer say, "Watch this."
Oh God. Yeah.
that might be more scary, if you're in the back of that Black Hawk or Huey. Hey, Frank, I want to take a moment here as we wrap up and just thank you personally. You're an inspiration and a wealth of knowledge to guys like me, and you've helped me, from a distance to make better decisions and to actually have the courage to do things like this podcast and to even, try to be a leader and go out there and change the industry a bit so that we don't become extinct. So I appreciate you for doing that personally. And I think that I can also show gratitude and say thanks on behalf of all of the investment clients, the financial advisors, and the wholesalers that you've impacted. We wish you much fortune and success both now and in the future. But before we say goodbye, can you tell us, tell us what you're working on for the next 5 or 10 years for the Maselli Group?
Sure. Well, before I do that, I want to thank you because I really do think you're doing great work and it's necessary work. And frankly, the wholesaling community has been underserved for a very long time. And I not just underserved, but I think misserved in some ways. So I think you're bringing some tremendous value. You've got great guests on here. I'm not even one of them. You've got some really smart people on here. So I want to thank you for having me on. Going forward, I'm working on a program called Teach to the Top, where I want advisors to take on a different role. I think the days of selling are over, and I think people are pretty clear on that. Quite frankly, we're not a sales profession anymore. We're a fantastic service profession. We're a fantastic helping profession, and I want advisors to become more skilled at teaching stuff to people. This transcends seminars. It takes a philosophy of being able to help. Now, teaching is interesting because a lot of advisors say, my clients don't want to be taught. They trust me. Well, good. That's the nirvana you're trying to get to. But for the future of this business, there's going to need to be some teaching going on, and we've got to become professional master educators, and in many ways, psychologists. So I teach a lot about psychology and teaching, and I think that is a better future for this profession than the past of, the Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross sales model. I think those days are long gone. So anyway, I'm excited about that. And given the fact that I'm attending Quick Start, this could change tomorrow. So as you know, these ideas come and go, but that seems like a good one. I'm excited about that.
I like it. And it's kind of funny you mentioned, Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, because Alec Baldwin kept me in the business.
Oh, you got to tell that story. Let me hear that.
That first week as a brand new financial advisor, I come in, I'm expecting my glass walled corner office, the market closes, I'm off, and I'm taken to basically a closet, and they've got a cube in there, and they say, okay, write down a list of everybody you know.
Oh my God.
And, the whole MCI, friends and family marketing strategy. So by Friday, I'm done. I've gone through the phases of grief over the week. What did I do? I left my job, and now I got to go crawling back. But hopefully, it was just a disaster, as everyone that's been in the profession understands. And then a training manager on that Friday grabs me and two other brand new guys and says, "Okay, we're going to do a training video in the conference room." So no problem. He's setting up the VHS tape. Remember that thing?
Sure.
And I go and I get a fresh cup of Joe, and I'm not kidding you. As I'm walking in the room, Jack Shelley is walking in on the movie thing on the TV show, and Baldwin says, "Put that coffee down. Coffee is for closers. And you haven't closed the deal all month." And I thought it was funny. And then I thought, I'm getting set up here. Next thing you know, one of the guys gets up and leaves, obviously calls the other guy, and he leaves. And next thing you know, it's me and this training manager, who's a dear friend of mine now, Malcolm Turner. And we're watching that Baldwin monologue. And he says, "You cry about the leads?" Because that's what I've been doing all week. "You cry about the leads. You don't deserve those leads. To give you those leads would be like throwing them down the toilet."
I tell you.
Yeah. He says, "I could go out tonight with those leads you have and make a sale tonight." And he holds up the brass balls. Remember that one?
Oh my
What it takes
God.
to sell real estate? Brass ball. That right there. So I literally, then he stops the VHS tape and he turns around and looks at me, and I'm fuming now because I think I was being set up, right? And too much time in the military where everything's like on purpose. And he says, "So what do you think?" And I said, "I got you." And he laughs. What do you mean? I said, "I got your message." And he's like, so for the next 3 hours, I unload all the frustrations. He gives me Nick Murray's Excellent Investment Advisor.
Oh my God.
Remember that book?
Oh yeah.
And I go away and I come back on Monday and I launch myself to an award-winning career that I've enjoyed, for 20 years. And I keep this because Baldwin says, "This watch costs more than your car. You go here in a Hyundai." But actually, as a token, this was a trophy that I got for a great sales year.
No kidding.
It just reminds me that I can do it. So when the times get tough, I'm reminded that, hey, I'm classy, I'm stylish, and I can do it. So
you can do it.
Little note by the Glengarry Glen Ross tribute. So yeah.
Wow.
Not that I'm a huge Baldwin fan, especially lately, but he is funny. You got to give him that. What a great movie that was, though. Pacino, Spacey, Jack Lemmon. I mean, it was just a ton of people that were in there.
Oh, David Mamet, Pulitzer Prize. I mean, you can't get any better than that. But, those days, listen, that used to be our business. It's really not anymore. It's just so fun, though. It is fun to watch.
It's true. I've enjoyed the transition. And, in fact, I'm enjoying it right now. So I appreciate you for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom and shedding some light on, what the future could look like. If folks want to contact you for your services or even to maybe offer you a rebuttal, how should they do that? I know you're on LinkedIn, but is there a better way to contact you?
Yeah, shoot me an email. It's frank@masellygroup.com, frank@masellygroup, or just, pick up the phone, give me a buzz, 919-329-2723, or, any way you want. I mean, I talk to people all day long, and it's my passion. This is what drives me every day, helping people in this industry. So I really appreciate you, and I thank you for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun. We could do this anytime you want.
I appreciate that. It was my pleasure, and I'm sure that the guests are going to the audience is really going to enjoy you as a guest. So with that, let's bring this one to a close. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed today's episode, let Frank know. And you can also let me know. This will be published, as you know, on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. If you'd like to support the show, just go on there and click on that subscribe button. If we deserve it, give us a 5-star review. But actually, the biggest thing you can do is share the episode to someone who you think could gain some value. For some reason, the algorithms like that, so we'll get some more popularity. Not that we're in it for that, but that'd be a way to help support the show. If you have any feedback for us, you know where to find us. You can definitely plug in. We love to continue the conversation with you. most of all, thanks for listening, for supporting the show, and of course, thanks for being awesome.